So, Bill, you've been pretty hard on the field of GOP candidates so far. I think you said at one point that you've seen, and I quote, more appealing lineups on an episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. Did you change your mind at all after last night's debate?
No, of course it got even worse. It's tough sledding there as a progressive, as a sane person, just to watch that, to see that, you know, republicanism it's really become a religion. And when I say religion, I mean they just have a series of baseless assertions that they cleave to, you know, and it's like if there was just one sane person in that room to give perspective, but there wasn't. So you have 7 people up there who are all claiming things like, you know, things we know don't work, like reducing taxes will somehow magically increase revenue, and somehow by keeping the profit motive in the healthcare system, that's going to solve that problem. So, you know, it's very hard for someone to watch that debate who is not in that bubble, and I am not in the bubble.
If you had to vote for one of them, is there one you would vote for? Who would you vote for? I mean, if you had to pick.
I'd vote for Ron Paul if I had to pick. I mean, Ron Paul is at least not a panderer. He's sincere. He's got the right ideas about getting our troops home. And, you know, I like Ron Paul. I think he's cut from a different cloth than the rest of those people who are, of course, selling their souls to the corporate interests who back them, and who have just horrible society-killing ideas about America, and either don't know what's real or don't care.
What do you mean by society killing?
You know, well, like Tim Pawlenty and every one of them competing for this idea of continually reducing taxes when we are on the one hand, they're screaming about how we're in debt, and on the other hand, the answer is to somehow decrease revenues. You know, they all act like God created the world in January of 2009, and then Barack Obama completely screwed it up.
A lot of people thought Michelle Bachmann, who I know you've had some choice words for over the months and the years, did well last night. Would you agree?
Of course not. She did well by what standard? Because she's able to speak in complete sentences? Yeah, I heard that analysis. Oh, she was very effective. She spoke in short sentences and was good. You know, I mean, the standards are so low. Let's be honest. We're judging her against Sarah Palin. That's what it is. And yes, compared to Sarah Palin, she does look better, because Sarah Palin comes off as a complete airhead, like a ditzy housewife, a stewardess, I think I called her in the past. Whereas Michelle Bachmann actually works. Sarah Palin is not a worker. Obviously, Michelle Bachmann, she's a lawyer, she's in Congress, she studies, she gets her facts wrong, but at least she sounds like someone who is a professional in her field. So compared to Sarah Palin, yes, big winner. But actually, the big winner was Mitt Romney, because I think because people are getting used to him, and that's what they have to do.
How do you think?
At a certain point, a lot of this.
Sorry, what do you think? Yeah. How do you think about Newt Gingrich? There was that whole issue of loyalty oaths for potential Muslim appointees came up. How do you think he did, given his problems with his campaign?
I assume you agree. As you come into the company, which wants to put 8.
Well, you know, I noticed at the end when he was waving, it looked like he was waving to the people who used to run his campaign. Goodbye. Look, Newt Gingrich, I said a long time ago, has this reputation as somehow he's the professor in the Republican Party. He's the idea man. No, he's a nut. And I think people are now coming around to this, that just because he says things that are out of the box doesn't mean they're smart or clever or workable. What is this you're referring to? Because I may have missed this part.
He said, we actually have the soundbite. Well, let's just play that.
All right, well, we did this in dealing with the Nazis, and we did this in dealing with the communists, and it was controversial both times. And both times we discovered after a while, you know, there are some genuinely bad people who would like to infiltrate our country, and we have got to have the guts to stand up and say no.
He was talking about sort of, you know, special interviews for Muslim appointees to a government based on Herman Cain's statement.
Right. Well, you know, Newt never misses an opportunity to bring the Nazis into it. He compared Obama to the Nazis at one point. He said his administration was more dangerous and more of a threat to us than the Nazis or the Soviet Union. So when Newt starts trotting out the Nazis, you really can't put a lot of money on that.
We've got to take a quick break. Part 2 of our conversation with Bill Maher. We're going to talk about Anthony Wiener, notably this.
Are you as passionate in the sack as you are about politics?
Part two now, my conversation with Bill Maher, host of Real Time on HBO, and though a proclaimed progressive, he has a lot to say these days about Democrats, namely Anthony Wiener and his sexting scandal.
In a world of politicians doing everything from having babies with the maid, leaving their wives on their deathbeds, and hiking the Appalachian Trail, you're guilty of the most humiliating indiscretion of all. You didn't get any. Talk about Democrats being ineffectual.
More now, my conversation with Bill Maher. So, Bill, Anthony Wiener has provided you with lots and lots of material recently. I don't know if you've been praying to the comedy gods for this, but I just want to play a bit of a dramatic reading you did with Jane Lynch, who I'm a huge fan of. We can only play a bit, and because it's difficult to play the whole thing, because you're reading the text, the tweets that Anthony Wiener and various women sent back and forth. So let's play that.
Ridiculous bulge in my shorts now. Want to see?
Yeah, can you send a pic? I want to sit on your so bad right now.
Geez, I'm rushing. Let me take a quick pic.
Awesome. How do I get it? Right here?
It won't go away, and now I'm taking pics of it, making me still.
So hot, you're making me again.
Geez, I have to go. I'll hit you later.
You get your ass to work and save my country from these Republicans.
We had to bleep out some of that. That, as you were saying before the break, that's one of those moments you're happy you're on HBO.
Yes, that's a wonderful thing about HBO is we can do things once in a while that come down the pike that absolutely nobody else can do. And I think people, I have to reiterate, that is the verbatim text. We were not ad-libbing in any way. We were doing a dramatic reading, but that is his Anthony Wiener's exchange with that blackjack dealer in Las Vegas.
Do you think he should resign?
Thank God he's in rehab, Anderson. At this point, yes, not because I think he did anything so incredibly awful. I mean, Dick Cheney used to go out and shoot birds by the hundreds that were like in a cage. To me, that's a lot more psychotic than anything Anthony Wiener ever did. But the point is, this is America. We have to live in reality.
Well, Dick Cheney wasn't shooting birds in a cage. He was hunting.
He was not hunting, Anderson. There's a difference between hunting, which I'm not a big fan of either, and when you go out into this controlled situation where they, I forget what they do to the birds, but they do something where they can't fly, they can't. It's the equivalent of shooting fish in a barrel. And yes, look it up. That's what he did.
All right.
He shot and killed an incredible number of birds for absolutely no reason than a bloodlust.
But if you don't think it's so bad what Wiener did, why do you think he should resign?
Because people won't let it go. Because you're asking me about it. Because until he resigned, this is how it works in America. When you do something unspeakable, you know, like be horny, you have to go away. Then he can come back. But until he goes away, they're not going to let it go, and it's going to be a huge distraction. I mean, the Democrats were sort of on a roll when this happened, and it completely threw them off their game and changed the subject. For the good of the party, which means, in my view, the good of the country, he needs to go away right now, let it calm down. Nobody's going to leave him alone until he does. And then the story will be a comeback, which America also loves. Go to rehab, whatever that is. I'm kind of with Charlie Sheen on that one. It's just a hotel you go to for a week where somebody says, you were a bad person, how do you feel? Until you nod and they let you go home. But then when he's in a year or two, people will forget about it because there'll be 8 other scandals that'll happen in the intervening time, and people will kind of forget, you know, these things come quickly and they go quickly. A year from now, people will be like, what did Wiener do? It was something with his penis, I can't remember, whatever. And then he can come back. People love both stories, but first you have to go away. Yes, he has to go away.
It's interesting because Nancy Pelosi has now called for him to resign, but it's the first person she's actually called for that on the Democratic side. She's never, like Dollar Bill Jefferson, you know, who was found with, I think it was $10,000 in his freezer down in New Orleans. She never called for him to step down. Trafficant, you know, there are others who've done things, Charlie Rangel, and she's never called for anybody, but she has called for Wiener to resign.
You can never really figure out the rhyme or reason why somebody has to go and somebody can stay. As many people have brought up, why does David Vitter continue to serve? He was calling prostitutes from his cell phone in the Senate. You know, Bill Clinton toughed it out. It's completely arbitrary. I mean, Newt Gingrich cheated on his wife while she had cancer, same thing as John Edwards did. John Edwards is the worst person who ever lived. Newt Gingrich gets to run for president. Your hair will go even grayer, Edwards, if you keep trying to figure out why someone has to go or why someone is allowed to stay.
Very briefly, I just want to get your take on Tracy Morgan. Were you surprised by what he said, offended by it? Has he done the right thing in apologizing?
Well, you know, it's like the Wiener going into rehab thing in this country. You know, nobody can ever just make a mistake and then we move on. We have to beat them down. Look, I mean, was it the smartest thing to say? No, but, you know, it was a joke. You know, America, especially liberals, have this pie-in-the-sky idea that somehow all minorities are sympathetic to each other. So how could a black guy say something about gays? Shouldn't they both know about oppression? Well, no. I mean, the gay marriage thing out here in California was defeated because black churches, as much as anybody, they do not like gay marriage. And they have a thing because they're very big on the Bible and all that stuff that, you know, it's just a wrong thing to do to be a homosexual. So, you know, we should probably get real with that reality first.
Bill Maher, it's always good to talk to you, Bill. Thanks.
You too.
One quick correction on something I said when I asked about former Congressman William Dollar Bill Jefferson. I said authorities found $10,000 in his freezer. I stand corrected. It was $90,000.